intro or anything. We are live. We're live. Here we are. No intro, no nothing. Hey, Jeff.
Hello, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very hairy. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah, that would be an apt description.
I'm hairy today. How are you?
I've got together, let's clean shave and short hair. So.
Well, Jesus loves us all, no matter what.
That is true. That's true. Amen and amen.
It's funny because when people that I see, I went to an event at a church last night, and somebody's like, "Did you play Jesus in this thing we did here?" I'm like, "No, it wasn't me. It's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, no." Plus, I don't think Jesus ever got gray, right? So I don't think I can play Moses.
I was just going to ask you that. Would Jesus have gotten gray hair? Because that's generally a sign of stress or whatever.
Premature graying, maybe. I'm glad that people think Jesus when they see me. I went to this other event, and this was several months ago. It was a banquet, and it's this church that I had just started going to. And in the course of the event, about 3 different elderly gentlemen, as I was in conversation, would walk by close by me and kind of lean into me and go, "Jesus," right? So it's like people just seeing me. And it's not that I am Jesus, but if people look at me and think of Jesus, like, hallelujah.
That makes good sense.
So I guess I'm obligated to keep it going, right?
There you go.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. Just I get a little anxious every time it rains because there are places in my house where I've been working at trying to get leaks from happening, and I'm down to one place, but there's still a little bit of leak. But in general, my house is not dripping now, so I'm pretty excited about that.
For our friends out there, we are getting some downpour here in Southern California. I love it. I love the rain. Love it.
I was watching the other night. We got around 4 inches of rain in Glendora, which that's almost unheard of to get that much rain in a single. I hesitate to call it a storm because I know what a storm looks like. A long extended rain, but it is good. We definitely need the water out here.
Yeah. Well, we should build some more reservoirs so we can keep the water. Anyway, won't go there. That's not our subject. That's not our topic. Speaking of which, let's just transition right into it. What are we talking about? Is there an apocalypse coming? Wait, you?
Well, of course there's an apocalypse coming. It's just a matter of when, and this is not it. No, so there was an asteroid that was discovered at the tail end of 2024. It's got this nice designation of 2024 YR4, which there's a reason why it has that designation to it. But more importantly, the interesting part about YR4 was that it had given the calculation of its trajectory, there was a non-trivial chance that it might hit the Earth in 2032. And so anytime you talk about asteroid hitting the Earth, you start getting that's an interesting topic to start with. And so that's
becoming apocalyptic.
Well, so there's 2 aspects of this. There's 1, will it hit the Earth? And 2, if it hits the Earth, what will it do? And if you've ever watched Hollywood, when an asteroid hits the Earth, it's going to wipe out humanity. That's the scale of things that are going to happen. This one, even if it were to hit the Earth, is much more akin to stuff that has happened in recorded human history. Because it's given our best estimates, it's somewhere between 50 to 100 meters in size, which, size of a football field. This is not a small object.
Mm-hmm.
But, there have been events like this in the past 100, well, I guess it's a little over 100 years now, where these sorts of things are more like the detonation of a large thermonuclear weapon. Big event, but not global cataclysm. And so that's kind of the nature. Even if this were to hit the Earth, that's the sort of scenario we'd be in there.
Okay. A couple questions come to mind. One is, at that size, some of it burns up in the atmosphere, right? Like it's currently that size. Is there a gauge? Is there a measurement possible known that by the time it would hit the Earth, what size it would be, or it's not, it would still make that impact. I mean, that big of an impact.
So it really depends, because there's a lot of things that play into that. There's a question of how directly does it impact. So
Right.
if it comes
The
in directly
trajectory.
down
Yeah.
towards the Earth, then it's almost certainly going to survive to the Earth. If it comes in at a glancing blow, maybe it'll burn up in the atmosphere. If it has a more cometary where it's largely ice, that's different than if it's more asteroid, which is more
Right.
rock. So that, like I said, there's a whole slew of questions that come into that. But your question is relevant in this sense, or at least in this way, is that back in 1908 there was a asteroid or a comet that roughly this size, I think it was 50, 60 meters. So in this class that struck, and I'll use the term struck in air quotes there, over the Tunguska region in Russia. And
Siberia.
it was a air explosion. So the thing exploded in the air. So it never did actually hit the earth. But even with that, it leveled trees in a 30 by 30 mile square area. So 30 miles on one
Wow.
side, 30 miles on the other side. It leveled 80 million trees in that
Like the
area.
concussion, air concussion.
Exactly. And it was such that even one of the recorded events of it, a guy about 40 miles away was watching. He saw, the sky light up. He saw the fire on one side.
Wow.
And 40 miles away, the blast from the event was enough to knock him 3 or 4 meters back and knock him out. And, it's a big event no matter what you're talking about.
Got it.
Whether we're talking about large nuclear explosion or end of humanity, we're in the large nuclear explosion, not end of humanity category.
Well, on that, so a nuclear blast, is a specific thing, and there would be fallout, right? But
Yeah.
from an asteroid or meteorite impact, there wouldn't necessarily be that fallout or radioactive fallout, or is you say the size of the impact, but what about the effects, the lingering or after effects?
No, that's a good point. Is that so? The comparison with the nuclear blast is what is the amount of energy released in there. And so they're similar scale and energy, but you're correct. With a nuclear explosion, you've got radioactive materials that are being dispersed in a comet or asteroid hitting the Earth in the atmosphere, or even directly hitting the planet. It's not going to have any of that. Well, it's not going to have any elevated levels of radioactive material. So it's just going to blow a bunch of stuff out there. Now, it does have, it's going to blow stuff up into the atmosphere. It may make ice crystals, create a dust haze in the atmosphere that reduces the amount of sunlight penetrating to the surface. So it will have other effects, but it's not going to have the radioactive fallout like a nuclear blast would.
Got it. So nothing to worry about, everybody. Nothing to worry about here. Nothing.
Well, unless it's over Los Angeles, because then it will devastate a large metropolitan area. So kind of depends on where. So
Wait. So that soundbite, right? What you just said there, I could pull that out, and I could put a clickbait headline on it. What you said is, it will devastate Los Angeles. It will. Oh, really? So the scientist is telling us a meteorite is coming to destroy Los Angeles. Just kidding.
Well, so okay, so that's
what people do when they take sound bites.
Do that on social media. It's like there's truth in what I said, but the way you're saying it is, that actually bugs the daylights out of me that people get away with doing that, because the
astrophysicist said a meteorite is coming to destroy as it gets closer, right? So this is coming. It'll be in the vicinity at least in 2032.
Yes, so it will. The chance where it has the most likely, or the orbit where it has the most likely chance to impact the Earth is in 2032. I get the impression Earth crosses Earth's path more often than that, but we happen to line up where it's crossing our path at that point in time. And I think if I remember reading the numbers correctly, we're somewhere in the 1% to 2% chance at this point in time, given the best calculations, that it might hit. So in other words, given the range of saying, okay, it's going to come through in this block, there's a one or of that range, Earth occupies 1 to 2% of that range. Now, more than all likelihood, what's going to happen as we get better and better measurements of where it's going to hit, the estimates of the probability of hitting Earth will go up for a while, and then eventually we'll find it's not going to hit the Earth at all. And it's just due to the way that's calculated. So as we get more and more precision on its orbit, we're going to find the error bars are going to get smaller, which as long as the Earth is in the error bars, the probability is going to go up. But in all likelihood, the error bars are going to fall outside of hitting the Earth, and it won't hit us at all. So that's likely what's going to play out with that over the next few years.
So are we like NASA and the military industrial complex? Are we getting that trip together, getting Bruce Willis on board and Ben Affleck and stick them up on a drill team to go up and land on it and blast it apart? You remember that movie? Did you see that movie?
I did. I like. There's Armageddon and Deep Impact.
That's.
I think there's a third one.
Armageddon was that
I
one.
like
Yeah.
all of them. So.
Yeah. Of course you do.
I'm a hokey movie person, so I like stuff like that.
I like them because they with special effects kind of show things that could happen or might happen or did happen in the days of the dinosaurs, right? Like that. That's
true.
So like the Gulf of America now. Google changed it. Google actually changed it.
Oh, really? No, I did not know
Google
that.
Maps. You go on Google Maps, it says Gulf of America. So the Gulf of America is a crater, right?
I don't think that's the case. I will have to go look that up, and I'm not going to speak to what I don't know. I do know that I would be surprised if that were a crater, because you go down to the Yucatan Peninsula, and there is the remnants of a crater from when an asteroid hit there. That's likely the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. And it's on the order of a couple 100 meters in size. The Gulf of America or Mexico, depending on what you want to call it, is something on the order of 1,000 meter or 1,000 miles. And so I have a hard time believing that a crater that large is still left around.
I see.
I'm not going to weigh into that, but I'm skeptical of that idea.
All right. Well, you can come back next month and correct me or stand corrected. Well, we'll see.
Go look up. Now, what I would say, you asked about should we go out there and blow it up. The nice part about something that's only 30 or 40 meters in size is that we probably could if we could hit it with a missile, that would probably blow it up. The ones in Deep Impact and Armageddon are miles across. And more than likely, you just blow it up, and now a whole bunch of things hit the Earth instead of just one big thing that hits the Earth.
Right, and we have, technologically, we're advancing. We're always advancing technologically, and I remember the Star Wars dome, right? The plan to shoot things out of the sky. I think we're getting better and better at that, and I think the current administration, we have we have a new. I think it was during Trump's first administration that he created the Space Force.
Yeah, I do believe about that. So, well, and I do know, and I'm going to miss the details on it, but there was a mission where we launched a impactor to one of a comet or an asteroid to see, can we deflect that? Because going out and blowing it up is hard, because all the stuff's still in the trajectory and it's still getting
right.
Whereas
make smaller ones all going the same direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas if you can go up there and hit it and deflect its path, given enough time, that will take it outside of hitting. And we were able to do for the scale of what we were doing, a very successful test there. Now, we're still not able to deflect a miles wide something that's coming to hit Earth, but we are actually, it's not just in the science fiction in the movies where we're doing this. We are actually contemplating how might we recognize an asteroid or comet that's 10, 15, 20 years out from hitting the Earth and be able to deflect it in a way so that it wouldn't cause any damage. So those things are really actually being done.
So I want to transition here in a second, but last kind of question or comment on this. So we're able to scan the heavens, and this is a thing that was just discovered, or it had been seen before, and its trajectory is only just now, so is this debris from the Oort cloud, or is this, explain how we're able to find these little things way out there and figure out their trajectories?
Well, so I'm always fascinated why the name 2024 YR4. That just seems like a dorky name. And so
Oh,
turns out there's actually a reason. And if you learn the reasons, you can actually get a lot of information. So the 2024 is obviously the year that it was discovered. So it was discovered last year. The Y, that first letter, it's actually, they don't use the letter I, but every letter designates a half of a month. So A would be the first half of January, B the second half of January.
okay.
So if you get to Y, you're the second half of the month of December. So it was discovered in the second half of the month of December. And then A is the first. So that's the Y. And then the R, A is the first one, B is the second one, C is the third one, da 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 da. Well, it's YR4. So that means we've gone through the alphabet 4 times and we're back to R. So I think it's like the 116th, 118th one discovered in the second month, the second half of the month of December in 2024. So that's, you can see how many we've discovered in the year. There's quite a few of them.
So it was just discovered, but it's been probably orbiting for a while, right? Or on an orbit, and we are just getting close. We just noticed that it's getting closer to Earth than it ever has.
Exactly. Well, and you notice, it's 50 meters. Let's say it's 50 to 100 meters across. That's a football field out there. You think, how could you not see something the size of a football field? But space is really, really big. I mean, there's 93 million miles between us and the sun. And there's a lot of small stuff floating around out there. So the smaller things like that, in fact, NASA has a goal of finding all of the 1 mile or larger size asteroids in our solar system.
Got it.
So 1 mile is quite a bit larger than 40 or 50 meters.
Yeah.
So, there's just lots of stuff like this floating around out there. And this probably happens all the time, and we're just not aware because it never gets close to the Earth.
Their mission is to find everything a mile, but incidentally, they'll find things that are smaller, and that's good.
Yes.
Well, Carrie has fact checked. Carrie in the comments has fact checked for us. The Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, is not an impact crater. So
okay,
you don't have to.
Skepticism was warranted there.
You don't have to expend any of your precious astrophysicist time trying to correct me. Carrie has done it for us. Well, okay. So I wanted to transition here because as we were picking topics, you sent a couple of topics, and I think this one transitions into the third one you picked, and about. Let me just read it. Why do movies get to claim based on a true story, and then make up so many important details? Our meeting. How did we meet? You and I. How did we meet?
We actually met because you sent over a movie script and asked me to ask, does it have scientific accuracy to it?
Yes.
And I enjoyed reading through the script, and it was by and large pretty accurate. And you were willing to adjust the things that weren't so accurate. So and then we ended up, that was like 8 years ago or something.
Yeah, it was like 8, maybe even 10 already. I don't know. It was before a pandemic. It was before I started on my Armenian genocide project. So that was almost 8 years ago. All right. But what was the subject of that story?
Oh, it was. Wasn't there something that was coming to hit the Earth? There was an asteroid impact in there. I had forgotten that aspect. I remember people were leaving the Earth, but I had forgotten that was the reason why there was something coming to hit the Earth.
So the core of the story is a guy who's being sent purportedly on a recon mission. There's another potentially habitable planet out there within 70 trillion light years or something. Let's get him there to prove that we can all survive if we can get there and live on that planet because we're going to destroy. No, the motive was we've discovered an asteroid field, right? Rather than just one asteroid coming toward the Earth, it was multiple cataclysmic size, right? So that was the plot is we need to go find a place to live because the Earth is going to be destroyed by asteroidal impacts. So and then there's a big twist at the end and everything like that. Maybe I should tell everybody the twist.
No, don't tell them the twist.
I see it in the movies. Yeah.
I actually really, my wife and my kids are very perceptive. It's like, oh, I bet this is what's going to happen. And finally, we just had to have this conversation. Don't tell me because I don't want to know. I actually want to be surprised.
Right. Don't speculate. Don't give me. But you read it, and so, but that was the premise, like that. That they're, in my in that universe that I created is it's an inevitability that asteroids are at some point going to, return and devastate. And we're in a, but but your question was, why do people get to use the term based on true story and a lie in their writing in their scripts? My
Well,
example was the opposite. My mine was an opposite example. I was intentionally trying to write something as scientifically accurate as possible, and that's what incentivized me to reach out to Reasons to Believe and to get as accurate, because I like the movie The Martian with Matt Damon. Like, that's as close, that was as scientifically accurate as possible. Obviously there's a few embellishments in
yeah.
that, but that was the desire. But you're right,
Well,
Hollywood screenwriters don't care about the truth. They just want to pretend it's the truth.
well, no, it does. I know the example I would give is, Remember the Titans is one of my favorite movies. I'll date.
I knew this was the incentive for this question.
Well,
You're
because
upset about this.
my wife gave me, or we got the movie one night. We watched it on a date, and so we were watching it and got done about 11 o'clock. And I'm like, I actually put it in the VCR, rewound it, so
You were moved by
there.
the power of the storytelling
I was.
moved you afterwards to go and research. Right?
I
What a movie. That's what
watched
as
it again.
as a filmmaker, it's what you want. You want to change people's lives.
Such a cool story because you've got this inherent conflict and the friendships that developed, and it's a great narrative of, oh, this is a powerful story. And then I come to find out that a lot of the details in it that struck me as resonating a lot weren't actually there. So there was this one of the white guys, one of the black guys, and it turns out this guy wasn't actually even a character. And the dramatic scene at the end where the Titans win this game, it was, one, Gary Bertier, one of the main players, didn't get hurt till after that, and two, that game wasn't even close. It's like there were these things that made the story impactful, and I still like the movie. I will watch the movie and enjoy the movie, but it took it out of it became, when I found out these details where things had not happened, it became a movie. It became just a movie that had a good story instead of a movie that I could use as a story, if that makes sense. Yeah. And that's what bugged me about it. So why do we do that?
Well, Hollywood does that for exactly the reaction. Like Hollywood has a hubris, I guess. We know how to tell a good story. The facts be damned. It's a trope I've heard over and over again is don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And it's understandable. As creatives, right? We're created in the image of God, and one of the facts of that is that we're creators, right? The image of God is a creator, and therefore he's created us like him in that regard. And we can come up with really interesting stuff, right? We come up with imagination. God has given us imagination. I think it's an essential tool toward progress, right? And our imaginations are essential for us to discover, right? We can imagine and say, what if? Mm-hmm. Sometimes those what ifs turn out to be reality and actual and lead us in a direction. Sometimes those what ifs are just like complete fantasy, but are still fun and interesting. So I can't knock the human, design to want to make things interesting, but it's that tagging on that marketable phrase, true, right? Based on a true story. And that's the rub right there. It's like, well, what is truth? You believe in truth? I'm gonna do a quick. I'll do this. Most of the people in the comments know this, but I have an event coming up. Speaking of truth, I have an event coming up where I'm interviewing and interacting with a historian out of UCLA, and you're invited officially. But one of the things that I want to talk about in that, because he's a historian and I'm a storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. He teaches history, trying to get to the facts, and I want to put them in an interesting pattern. But the thing is, we have different semantic ranges, different domains, right? Our linguistic domain as Hollywood and storytellers, we use phrases like hero, villain, good, evil, truth, right? These are all phrases that historians hate. It's not in their vernacular. Villain, that's just a person that lived a life and did a thing, and some of the things he did were good,
Mm.
and some, like literally Adolf Hitler built the Volkswagen, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we still drive Volkswagens. It's not the Hitler vehicle, right? Like, it's like, how could you how could you apply something good to this villain in history? Well, the historians, for a
Yeah.
reason, avoid that terminology. And the word truth, and this is when I really started working on this project with my Armin, my one historian. He made a point. It's like, when we're around my academic friends discussing this, try not to use the word truth so much. It was like, oh, okay, I get it. They deal in reliability or most likely or et cetera, but the word truth itself it's anathema to them. They're like, and obviously we're speaking in the ultimate terms, right? A truth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it would seem to me that a historian, that's kind of their goal, is to get to the truth. This is what actually happened. Is that different than the way way you're using it there? Because that's
You would
so
think,
not.
it's different, and I think because of it, they have they overcorrect, if you
Mm,
will, right?
okay.
Because they don't want to use the word truth, they don't use it at all, and so it's not even in their analyses. Is this true or not? They just avoid the word.
Interesting.
Um, but so that's where storytelling and history kind of, there's a rub there. It's like we want to tell interesting stories and we want to tell true stories, but sometimes the true stories aren't as interesting as we think we can make them. And that's my bugaboo is
Ah.
I think there are true hero stories that you don't need to make a bunch of stuff up. Uh, let
Mhm.
me qualify that.
Yeah.
You always have to make stuff up if you're telling a story because not every piece of dialogue is documented.
Yes. No,
And
that
to
makes
tell a story, you have to have human beings talking to each other. So
right.
you have to make up the dialogue, but what the nature of that dialogue is, or the specific events, like you're saying, the guy got hurt, but not at that time, and the score in the game was a blowout. It wasn't close, and it's more tense when it's a close game. Stuff like that. Those are the things that bother me. Find a
Mhm.
different story to tell if you have to change such significant plot points.
Yeah.
That's I don't know.
No, and I would. That's kind of.
Or don't call it a true story,
Yeah,
right?
I recognize that you've got not all of the dialogues there, but when you're what bugs me is where there are parts that are made up that that's part of the main narrative they're telling,
Mhm.
or really close to the main narrative, and that's not true. And so it's like, okay, so what do I do with that, as opposed to, what else in here was. I can almost feel like my feelings have been manipulated,
Well,
instead you set me up to say, hey, this is the way things worked, and then you just manipulated the way I felt, and I'm like,
let me
that's not a good
let me
idea.
answer you asked, what do I do with that? What you do with that is exactly what you did with it. You were inspired, excited, you researched it, and you got disappointed, and you learned something from it.
All right. All right.
So I would argue that it kind of backfired. It was because it was such a good movie that you enjoyed it so much that
Mhm.
you were motivated to go beyond and dig. But people that didn't enjoy the movie as much didn't have that experience. They didn't get disappointed. They enjoyed the movie, but not so much to find out that it was not true.
Yeah.
Right? It's a conundrum.
Right. Well, and I wonder if, and I realize we're coming up on the edge here, but I wonder if, as Christians, we don't, how do we use that well in talking about Christianity? That I think I wonder if there are times where we're inclined to want to make the story sound a certain way. And then when you go look at what Christianity is, it's like, oh, the way you portrayed it, it was some things were left out in there. And
I,
the Bible is a far more complex book of what it tells than what often gets presented as Christianity, whether from a Christian or from a secular person.
I,
And so
I'm go
I
ahead.
think the more we tell what the story actually says, the better off we're going to be. Because then people go on, it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was in there.
I'm with you on that. And uh, part of the rub is when you have Hollywood people, they're not as inclined to be as intellectually rigorous or academically rigorous. And so when telling a biblical story, there'll be assumptions that everybody knows this and everybody knows that, and so if we're going to make something up, we'll make up this scene because it comports with what everybody knows, and that'll send you. One of the reasons I don't watch The Chosen, and I'm not saying that that's present in the movie The Chosen, but there's too many things that I have a problem with, so I can't just sit and ignore the things. And so it's God is in control. That's the deal with it. Like, I want to be rigorous and intellectually accurate, and I'm going to do things my way, and other people do things their way, and God will be glorified anyway.
Yeah. And at some point, an asteroid's going to hit the Earth, but my lifetime, or at least not one that I can worry about. So.
Well, that will continue this next time. All right, we're way past time. Thank you all for joining us. Good to see you, my friend. See you next month. We are.